Disclaimer: before you watch this, I will be spoiling movies, so if you don't want the movies from friggin' 70s and 80s to be spoiled, then just leave, I guess. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to BORST the Week. This week's going to be a little different. I watched a bunch of films and TV this week, and I had a really hard time deciding on what was going to be my top, so I picked two. And then from there, I had a hard time deciding between those two, so I'm just going to talk about both of them this week. I did, however, like one a little bit more than the other one, but I really feel like both of them need to be talked about. And on top of that, they're complete polar opposites, so I felt like it'd be okay to for the better of the week to be stacked. So without further ado, let's get into it. Pumping Iron is a 1977 documentary by George Butler and Robert Fiore. It was a super interesting piece that showcases the narcissistic tendencies of men that were larger than life. This documentary really hit home for me because I was always a little chunky growing up, so I grew up really idolizing these guys. The doc itself was great. The pacing is on point. It kept me engaged the entire time, which, I'm going to be completely honest with you, is a plus because I have a very short attention span. Shows are hard for me to watch in spurts because I have to stop and keep going, so a 2-hour movie is really my attention span where it's at. You really start to feel for the hardships of some of these men in the film and what they're going through. I mean, sure, some of them were living it up, but most of them didn't come from a glamorous life, and it wasn't as clear-cut as many made it seem, like Arnold. Plus, on top of that, this movie gave us one of the greatest monologues of all time.
It's as satisfying to me as coming is, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people. I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night. I mean, it's terrific.
The only issue I really had with the film was the fact it only focused on one man, Arnold. Now, before you say it, yes, I know the name is Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pumping Iron. I get it. But I feel like if it would have been more interesting if more of the movie was focused on the guys that were trying to go pro and what they were going through rather than just the pro guys. I also didn't care for the music. It was just out of place for me. I don't know. This was, other than that though, it was well planned and a well filmed documentary, so it deserves an 82 out of 100 in my idea. Now to the other film that was Pumping Iron's complete opposite, and that was Grave of the Fireflies. This movie originally came out in Japan in 1988 and the United States in 1993. It was directed by, I'm going to butcher this name, so I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to put it up on the screen right now. It follows Seita and his younger sister Setsuko in the 40s, and they're trying to find shelter in war-torn Japan. Now let me tell you, I've cried in a few movies and shows here and there. I'm not going to tell you what those were, though. I'm just going to let you have to guess. But nothing got me like this did. I was doubled over in tears. The complete loss of innocence that war and tragic events can have on a child is shown wonderfully in this. I did have some problems with it. They were very finite, though. The first one was some of the scenes needed to be cut down. The main example of this was right after the mother passed. Seita tries to cheers up his younger sister by doing acrobatics, which is kind in theory, but the scene goes on for 20 seconds longer than I wanted it to, so I'm kind of nitpicking here. And then I also read a review on IMDb that I agree with that says, although this is a beautifully written and animated film, it is at times unbearably sad. I agree with that. There really is no happy moment in this entire film. I mean, the opening line is September 21st, 1945. That was the night I died. You have nowhere to go but up from there, and it kind of just stayed at sad the entire film. This was the fourth Ghibli movie I've seen, the other ones being Ponyo, Spirited Away, and My Neighbor Totoro. And the color palette in Grave of the Fireflies was very different, and it was very interesting. It was complete opposite, which is perfect for the story they're portraying. Ponyo, for example, beautifully animated and full of vibrant colors, full of life and energy. Now look at Grave of the Fireflies, full of browns and gray, beautifully showing the grittiness of war in an animated film. Out of the four I've seen, I would probably put it second behind Spirited Away. I mean, come on. Spirited Away is actually flawless. So with that being said, I would give Grave of the Fireflies about a 90 out of 100. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, drumroll please. The worst this week is Puka. This poop fest came out in 2018, directed by a man named Nacho. His name is actually Nacho, and the whole synopsis of the movie is that this actor wears a mascot suit, but it's taking over his body somehow. Now let me just clarify, this by no means is the worst thing I've ever seen. But it absolutely does not mean it's good. Let's start with what they did right. Some scenes were cool, like when we have Winston, I think his name is Winston, with walking down the hallway or pleasuring himself with the Christmas lights. It seems very Ari Aster-esque, and I say that very loosely. I'm sorry, Ari Aster, I love you, man, but... And the story itself was somewhat coherent, I guess, even though they basically just ripped off the entire plot of The Machinist, an actual gem of a movie. Okay, now that the good is out of the way, and I say good very loosely, let's get into what was bad, and that was literally everything else. We'll start with the glaring obvious, or in this case, not so glaring, and that was the lighting. Hey, Nacho, if that is your real name, you know, buddy, you could turn on the lights. It's okay, I wouldn't mind if you turn on the lights there. I know you want to be a dark horror, but I can't fucking see anything. The actors just blend in with the shadows. Second, the story is stupid. Sure, I said this was a ripoff of a good movie, but I literally just takes all the good parts from that movie, that good movie, The Machinist, and duties on them. The whole premise of the movie is just unbelievably dumb. They pushed too hard for this horror gore aspect, and would have been more successful if they just stuck with a more thriller. Finally, acting is just so bad. Like this guy, who is this? Discount Joe Trulio, who is already a discount version of himself, by the way. I'll bet this guy's been in some top-notch cinema. Oh, he hasn't? I wonder what you're telling me his line delivery's off in this? Oh, and his voice? His tone of his voice? Oh, and his posture's weird? Oh, and he should stop acting and should never act again in Hollywood? Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. This movie gets a ripe 30 out of 100 because I'm feeling generous right now, so just end me. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll be sure to upload more frequently. That being said, peace.